Hey, everybody, welcome into the Windy City Breakdown. I'm Andy Martinez, joined by my co hosts, Tony Andracki and Kyle Milinovich. Guys, it's a fun day. It's the official start of spring training with pitchers and catchers officially reporting. But as we know, as we've seen, like that's kind of just an arbitrary date almost because these guys show up all the time. But the big stuff that happened with the Cubs today was on Wednesday. We're recording on Wednesday. I can't be keep saying today. The big thing that happened on Wednesday was Jed Hoyer, Carter Hawkins, Craig Counsell had their first press conferences of the spring. Tony, I want to start with you. I guess what was your biggest takeaway? What did you learn from what the trio said?
Not much. I mean, we were talking about this before the pod. I feel like there wasn't much to be gleaned. I mean, really, the main thing, maybe I feel like the only thing I learned from watching, obviously wasn't there in person, but like that Daniel Palencia is the closer. I think it was Jesse Rogers who asked Craig Counsell point blank, like if the season started tomorrow, was Daniel Palencia the closer, and Counsell said, "Yeah." So, I mean, I don't think that was, like, a huge surprise just given that the Cubs completely remade their bullpen this winter, um but yeah, I think a little bit of a surprise in the sense that, like, that's not Counsell's way, and we've known that from the first 2 years here, right, Andy? That, like, he doesn't really like naming the closer role, and he didn't say closer, he just said he would get the ninth inning, but, like, that that feels notable because that's not something that Counsell normally does and kind of hands guys. I mean, I don't I'm trying to recall if he even said specifically that Palencia gets the ninth inning at any point last year when he had it for,
No.
a 4-month stretch. So I feel like that's notable.
Yeah, I mean, he always used the phrase "out getter" and but it's notable too because like that's one of those questions that you kind of almost ask in jest at the beginning of spring training, like that. Who's your opening day starter? Who's your leadoff hitter? And like for the most part, especially like opening day starter, sometimes like a couple of years ago you would know it's like Justin Steele, or last year in 2025 you kind of knew it Shota Minaga with the Tokyo series. Like those are the kind of the questions you ask in jest, and sometimes because there's like big announcements that the league wants to do or like that the team wants to do, Craig Counsell or Jed Hoyer, they kind of have to be coy. And I think that's what was like so shocking about the Palencia news is like you ask that expecting to get, oh, he's an outgetter, or he knows what his role is as an outgetter, something along those lines. But no, like you got he's the ninth inning guy. And it was just funny because of the back and forth where like everyone was kind of shocked in the room. Or at least that's how it sounded. And then uh, uh Craig Counsell said, is that a nice scoop for you, Jesse? And like everyone kind of laughed. So like that kind of just shows like Craig gets what he was talking about. Like he knew what he was doing, and that's what makes it fun.
I want to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Okay.
Who else would like theoretically? Who else would be the closer? Look at who their relievers are, right? Like it's Daniel Palencia and a bunch of guys who are not going to be the closer. So I mean, I feel and yeah, what day is it? February 11th. Daniel Palencia is the quote unquote closer, but is that like a surprise to anybody? Is that a surprise to you guys in the slightest?
No, not a surprise. I think it really like what we're saying is it's a surprise that Counsell like came out and said it because that's kind of very anti Craig to do that, but especially so early on. But no, Kyle, I'm 100%, 1,000% agree that I think Palencia is the guy. I mean, I think just given that they made some nice signings, like Phil Maton and Hunter Harvey obviously were like good signings, even Jacob Webb, but like those guys don't have closing experience. Hobie Milner is an all right, lefty and stuff in there, bringing back Thielbar. Like those guys aren't going to close. Like you said, I mean, they might have to, right? Like we didn't think Brad Keller was going to be closing down playoff games, and he did a really, really good job at that and turned it into a multi-year deal in free agency. So, but yeah, I mean, when you look at it on paper, I think Palencia was like the easy choice. But it's just, I mean, it's funny because Counsell was also asked about opening day starter, and he said he's not there yet. So it's just, I'm not expecting him to be. I think if Cade Horton's healthy, I believe that Cade Horton will be the opening day starter. But like, yeah, I think it was notable in that like Counsell actually like offered that information up, and for us, like people in the media, people and fans, like people watching, like it's kind of fun to just know that ahead of time and to see Craig play against type a little bit.
Yeah, and that's like that's the thing is like you don't expect to. get announcements like that on February 11th. Partly because you just don't know how spring training is going to pan out. We saw injuries, we saw breakout performances. You mentioned Brad Keller. Like literally at this time last year, no one would have thought that Brad Keller was going to be a factor in the opening day roster picture, let alone a high leverage, like the most trusted, probably second most trusted reliever in the playoffs. So like, there's just a lot that happens in the 6 weeks. So like, that's also why it's a little bit shocking that Craig Counsell, and maybe it is part of the phrasing too, right? The phrasing of the question was if there was a game today and you had to turn to Palencia, and then is he your ninth inning guy? Yes. And I think that is kind of a good way to ask it to try and get an answer. But I still think that normally Craig Counsell would be like, no, he's an outgetter. So that's why I think it's noteworthy. But other than like that piece of news, and we've spent like 5 minutes talking about it, like you're right, Tony. Like there wasn't much else, and like there were some baity questions. I'll phrase it that way of like, would you sign some free agents, or like is there, and everything was kind of like general, very vague of like there's still a lot of good players out there. I believe was something to quote or paraphrase Carter Hawkins, like there's still a lot of good players out there that could make sense. But like we talked about it last week on this podcast, like it kind of seems like a lot of the seats on the roster are accounted for.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, like I was on with our friend Mick Gillespie on his podcast earlier this week, and Andy, you and I were just talking about it too. Like Mick was asking if I think that the Cubs are going to sign Zach Gallen, and there's a lot of rumors out there. I think maybe it was Bob Nightingale just referenced it, earlier this week about the Cubs being in on Zach Gallen, and I don't really see it. I don't feel like they're gonna go that much past the luxury tax to sign a guy who affects the rotation in the roster in such a way that it's kind of a weird fit, right? Like, I mean, you have 5 starters right now. When you have, assuming everybody's healthy, which a month and a half from now, that might not be the case, especially when you have, Boyd pitching in the World Baseball Classic. But like, you never know what things happen. But you got, Boyd and Cade Horton, Edward Cabrera, Jameson Tyone, Shota Imanaga. At some point, Justice Steele will be back. We don't know exactly when that is. That was the other notable thing, is he's throwing off a mound, which is really good, but they don't have a timeline or anything else. The fact that he's throwing off a mound, I think, is a great news for Steele. But yeah, you have those guys. You have Javier Assad, you have Colin Ray. We even talked about this in the pod last week. Like I just, I think you feel good about like 7 guys, 8 guys, and then Kyle Wright, a minor league signing, a guy who won 20 games for the Braves a couple years ago. Like I feel like you have depth in the organization, and to me, I don't get what the Zach Gallen signing does if there's a bunch of question marks, which there are. I mean, he's been healthy, but his performance has suffered for 4 straight years. ERA WAR. A lot of the stuff has been trending in the wrong direction for 4 straight seasons, and I don't know what kind of contract he's going to get, but like, assuming that question that you referenced, Andy, was about a guy like Gallen, I don't feel like the Cubs are really going to be pushing hard in that market, because I feel like there's not really an upside to that. Like, they're already going to be at or over the luxury tax as it is with this roster. They've already upgraded a lot. I like where they're at, and any other move they make has a trickle down effect that would affect somebody else on the roster, putting them in a position they've never been, or sending somebody to the minors who probably doesn't belong in the minors.
Right, and like it's not like you could like look at the starting pitching depth. Like you look at Boston, who has a little bit of a starting pitching overload, and they're kind of like trying to use that depth to maybe make some trades. It's not like the Cubs can necessarily go out and make that trade to fill another hole, because like their bullpen set, their rotation is obviously set, and their position player group is like set. So if you're going to try and trade from that group, like realistically, what are you going to get? Because the guys that you're going to have to part with, if you want to get a substantial return, you're not going to part with. And guys like Jameson Tyone, Matthew Boyd, some of these guys that have a track record in the pitch wall are not going to be attractive because they have a high salary attached to them for one season. So a team's gonna lose them after that one season. So like this is kind of their group, and for what it's worth, the people I've reached out to, like with the Cubs organization, like the Zach Gallen stuff doesn't feel as genuine as like as like it has been made out to be. But I also think a lot can change between 6 weeks. Like we've talked about, like we've seen, if his number really comes down and you feel like there's a good place, and maybe there is an injury to come up, sure, like maybe then it makes sense to get Zach Allen. But right now, as things stand, as the roster stands out, it just doesn't. There's just no room for Zach Allen to add him onto this team.
Yeah, so I mean, looking at the roster, they have 3 pitchers right now on the big league roster that have minor league options remaining. Cade Horton, Javier Assad, Daniel Palencia. What maybe Assad, there's a case to option him down, but like if Horton and Palencia are healthy, it makes 0 sense to you're talking about probably your best reliever in Palencia and probably your best starter in
Your
Cade
closer,
Horton.
literally your closer.
Yeah, right. So and possibly your opening day starter. So that makes no sense. The other guys, I mean, you'd have to add one of the other veterans to the IL, or you'd have to get rid of them, like release them from the organization, designate them from assignment, trade them away. Like that's what you'd have to do to create room for a Zach Gallen or somebody else. So yeah, I'm not saying that there's no moves. Absolutely, they're not going to make any moves, but like because like I said, injuries do happen. We're almost 7 weeks away from opening day. I just feel like it's not particularly likely that now is the time in as spring training starts that they're gonna push their chips in for a guy like that.
One note to make too, you mentioned Javier Assad, that brought up a good point. Matty Lee reported this, Craig Counsell mentioned it in his press conference. Assad, Christian Bethancourt, an on-roster invitee catcher who has played for the Cubs and was Kyle, you can correct me, was
24,
24 as the
2024.
yep. And Moises Ballesteros are not in camp right now because of visa issues, but Craig Counsell made it sound like they should be there soon. Just a quick aside, so like if you see pictures or if you're like, where are those guys? Those guys are having some visa issues, but are expected to be with the team pretty soon. Um, Tony,
What
what else?
real
What?
quick though,
Go ahead, go
Andy,
ahead, go
I
ahead.
I, I want to get so you and I kind of wear the reporter hat, right? From like being around talking to these guys
Yeah.
and having that role. And Kyle, you have a little bit more of that like fan hat on. I mean, I'm curious your take, Kyle. Like, do you feel like the Cubs should go all in for a guy like Gallen or another pitcher that's out there? Doesn't have to be Gallen specifically, but like, do you feel like they need more, or this is what you want to see from the team is to just keep pushing the chips all in?
That's a good question. It's kind of a catch-22, right? Like the old adage is you can't have enough starting pitching, or I guess in general, you can't have enough pitching. But at the same time, it's what you guys just mentioned. Who has the options to go down? Who can be that swing guy going between Iowa and the big leagues? And it's Assad, Cade Horton, and Palencia, right? Like you're not going to, Assad maybe is probably the only one that's you potentially would send down, but he's also like, he's, he's so valuable. He's so valuable.
Yeah.
So no, I'm good, and especially like with Kyle Wright, that's a nice depth piece there. You have Colin, right? Like they have so many options right now that I truthfully I mean, I know I mentioned it last week and I was just kind of throwing options out there, but I don't think it makes any sense for the Cubs to sign Zach Gallen. So with that being said, they'll sign him this week and I'll be pumping those tires to the moon.
Yeah. You're nothing if not consistent.
Yeah.
It is funny that you say that though about like the Javier side and like the options, because like to me that's the guy I keep penciling is like that's the guy that you probably send down to Iowa to keep stretched out as your first call up in case you need a starting pitcher. But like I also go back to at this same time in 2023 you were in the same boat with Javier side because he had a nice 2022 campaign where he debuted and like he looked pretty solid. And you're like, all right, he's going to be nice, solid pitching depth. And then he goes to the WBC and he's facing the U.S. lineup with like Mike Trout and all those guys and throwing 97. And there's a World Baseball Classic and he's on this roster. Like if he goes out and has another dominant performance in the WBC, like I mean, who's to say that he doesn't put himself in the picture like that, like he did? Now, I think it's a much more uphill task than it was in 2023, but like that's another thing that like you have to keep an eye out for, I think.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I mean, like, we're not even getting into like Ben Browns and Jordan Wicks or even like Porter Hodges on the roster too. I mean, these are 3 maybe not quite so young guys anymore, but maybe more like still early in their big league, potentially big league careers, but guys who do have options who could start in the minors and spend a bunch of time in the minors last year. But I mean, Ben Brown was active for the NLDS series against the Brewers, which kind of seems crazy in hindsight to go back to, right? But like I could see him making the big league roster. And any signing you have affects his development. And I feel like at this point, like, he's what, down to 7th, 8th, ninth on the list in terms of potential starters, but he's a dynamic reliever at times and could be again. So, yeah, I mean, I think where they're at, like the way they've made these moves, and you go out and get some of these guys who are a little bit under the radar, the Jacob Webbs and the Hobie Milners and stuff. I mean, you make these moves understanding that these guys are going to be part of your big league bullpen on opening day, assuming they're healthy, and knowing that they don't have options, that you don't have the flexibility to bounce these guys from Iowa to the big leagues. So yeah, so I mean, I feel like they think they're pretty good. This is a pretty veteran laden group, actually. There's a young core and a good mix of veterans across both position and pitching group. But yeah, I mean, to me, I'm expecting moves on like the outskirts of the roster, not big splashes coming up. And the World Baseball Classic is a good point too, of like, how much do you want to incorporate guys into the mix when you have the World Baseball Classic that might take some guys away from the Cubs camp for multiple weeks? And then, the fact that like camp started, this is not a good time to sign pitchers, especially like starting pitchers. I feel like once camp starts, I'm always more of the mind of like, you sign maybe some relievers and you sign maybe some position players, but the starting pitching group you start spring training with is often the group that you go to opening day with.
I was gonna say, do you not feel, and I don't have any specific examples, but this is more just galaxy brain theory, that guys who sign later in the offseason or maybe even early into spring training, that those guys tend to struggle when the season starts. And it's almost like the bang isn't worth the buck. And again, I know I'm throwing that out there, and I don't even have a single concrete example to back up my claim. But it just going to what you're saying, Tone. Like, maybe this is just me reading too much into it, but like if you sign Zach Gallen, I feel like it just I don't know, it's too late to sign him. Like he's just I don't know if it's not ramped up, or and I know it's crazy to say that on February 11th, but what do you guys think about that?
I mean, that's kind
You
of what I was
you could call
saying,
me an
but
idiot. Call me an idiot.
no, I'm laughing. I've never heard the phrase "if the bang is worth the buck" before, so I don't
What?
know.
You
I know
you
what
know
you
so
mean. Like,
I was just gonna say, like, I was trying to think of like I was trying to like go through my catalog in my brain of like guys who have signed later of like how they've done anecdotally. I missed that phrase. I have not heard that phrase either.
You never heard the
yeah,
saying if
it's
the
like,
bang is worth the buck?
no. Are you googling it right now? Please tell me that other people use the phrase.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to find players to back up my example here, but of course I can't.
That's a that's a I've heard the phrase "bang for your buck," which you're kind of having a variation of, and heard the word like "the juice isn't worth the squeeze," the phrase, which I would have used
Oh
in that
yeah.
case. But like,
Oh,
I'm
this is
here, yeah.
semantics. This is semantics. You know what I meant.
It threw me off. I did know what you mean, and I'm with you. I don't think it's too late. Like that's you could reasonably get a guy built up for opening day, but I do think that World Baseball Classic makes it harder. It's not like they started spring training 2 weeks earlier. I mean, they start a couple days earlier than they normally would. Spring training is long anyway, so a starting pitcher can get ready. But I just think it makes it a little more difficult when it's a guy that has not been a part of your roster. Like it's one thing if you re-sign Cody Bellinger 2 weeks into spring training, like they did a couple years ago, who played on the team the year before and is a position player. It's another to introduce a brand new pitcher, even if he's throwing to has thrown to your starting catcher Carson Kelly for years, and when they played together in Arizona. Like even if that's true, it's just really difficult. So yeah, to me, I feel like at this point, like Zach Gallen's kind of square peg round hole, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think they're gonna sign him.
I don't think so either. I just got the Twitter notifications, not Cubs related at all, but Chris Bassett to the Orioles. So there's another starting pitcher, 18.5 million. So if that's kind of the going rate for like that kind of, I don't think Zach Gallen's too far off from that price range. So like again, does a price like that go into a team that has said that like yeah they're probably going to go over the luxury tax, which kind of like I'll believe it when I see it at this point. But like if they're going to go over it, like do you want to commit 18 and a half to a sixth guy in the rotation, whether or not he performs to a different level? That's another question. And to your point, Kyle, like I think of like the guys that you make that you sign later in camp. I think back to last year where Chris Flexen was signed like I want to say it was like a week before opening day or a week before Tokyo, before the Tokyo series, and it's like,
Yeah,
well, this
that's
guy's
where
just going to be
the
Triple A.
my theory
Go
comes
ahead.
apart. That's where
Well,
my
no, but
theory
like,
comes apart.
but I would argue that's if you're going to make those signings, like that's the signings you have to make is those guys that are okay going to Iowa to finish their
Exactly.
ramp up, right?
Yep.
Like Chris Flexen had the ramp up in Iowa in spring training and then in Iowa, and then when he came up, I mean, he pitched a lot of really good innings for the Cubs. Obviously,
Mhm.
like you kind of figured it would eventually like kind of fall apart because he had like a 0 ERA through like 7 or 8 outings. Like you kind of figured like this thing's it's gonna go back to the mean. But like that's the signings that would make sense at this point in camp where it's like, all right, this guy is okay going to Iowa to start the season to build up. Maybe has an opt out, and if there's a deal somewhere else, he can go. Or if we need a guy to make a spot start or something like that, that's the kind of guy that I think can make sense. But like, I think this is the roster. Like, I think for the most, like again, barring anything crazy, like this is the roster that their 26 man roster is going to come from the group of 40, 50 guys that are in Mesa in Cubs camp right now.
Agreed.
All right, so I have two questions then, and I don't know if we want to stay on the pitching topic or go to the position player side, but it kind of relates to both. So I'm just,
Ask
and
away.
this is saying all injured, like going into the season, they're fully healthy. Justin Steele's on the IL. The 13 pitchers that they have: Boyd, Horton, Cabrera, Tyone, Shota, Conray, Thielbar, Phil M. I don't know how to Matone, Palencia, Milner, Webb, Harvey. That's 12. So then the final spot in the bullpen would be between Porter Hodge, Assad, Ben Brown, Jordan Wicks, and Luke Little, theoretically. You'd have to think that's going to Assad to start the year. Pitchers aren't completely stretched out. You don't want your guys going, your starters going, deep, deep into the ball game. He's the perfect guy to eat a couple innings, correct? So would you think it's Assad that's going to win that 13th spot, so to say, in the bullpen, or somebody else?
Go ahead,
Tony,
Andy.
I'll let you go first.
All right. I think it's Ben Brown actually, and I think it's Andy's point earlier about like you send Assad down to the minors and stretch him out, and I feel like that's the answer here because like you can have a guy like Colin Ray and even Assad or even Ben Brown stretched out from spring training, and they do this a lot and they do it really well. Like it's easier to plug somebody in the rotation right away after spring training because these guys are all stretched out, and it makes no sense to shorten up a guy like Ray or Assad or even Ben Brown to an extent. You might as well just stretch them out now, right? So I think like to me, if somebody got hurt in the first few weeks of the season, you could probably pretty easily slot Colin Ray in there. But I think it does make some sense to send Assad down in the minors, have him in the rotation, and I mean, one of my questions for this season is like, what is Ben Brown's role this year and long term? And I feel like by the day, by the month, by the week last year, I was like losing hope or faith that the Cubs, and I think they are too, would make him a starting pitcher. I think he's a reliever and possibly a multi-inning reliever. I think that's his future. I think that's where he's going. And maybe I'll be proven wrong, but like really the two pitches that he has, the kind of command issues he has at times, he doesn't really seem like he has starting pitcher written all over him at the moment. So that's why I think he's also a guy who misses a lot of bats, throws hard. The two pitches he had when locked in are really good. So I could see him making the opening day roster and being. It even kind of fills what you said, Kyle. Of like he can take a couple innings when pitchers aren't stretched
Mhm.
out, and he could throw maybe twice a week and throw 2 to 4 innings in the bullpen, and it all kind of makes sense.
Like, there's just always it's seemingly always someone in spring that you're like this guy came out of nowhere and is gonna come up. And Trent Thornton kind of maybe fits the mold of Brad Keller in the sense of like he went to, I believe it was Tread Athletics, one of those biomechanic facilities that like guys go to and kind of revamp their stuff, kind of like Driveline, and get back on track or get their career back on track. And he's got big league experience. Maybe they find a way to get him on the roster and you add him that way. I think there's going to be someone like that that pushes the envelope that is opening eyes in spring training has an opt out, kind of like Brad Keller did last spring, and other teams are going to be interested, and they're going to be like, "Hey, we're going to add this guy. Assad's going to go down to Iowa to get stretched out, and he's going to be in the AAA rotation and be the first call up." And I think that's kind of how that last spot will happen. I think the tricky part with that is that then that leaves your bullpen with no option guys, and or they would leave him with one in Palencia, and as we've mentioned, like they're not optioning him. So then I think that creates some roster headaches, I guess. But there was a large part of last season in the summer where they had a bunch of guys with no options, and like they were all performing well. And I just kept thinking to myself, like someone's gonna struggle, someone's gonna struggle. And I like there was like Chris Flexen started to struggle, and I think he was one of the first casualties of like he had to get DFA'd because like they had a bunch of guys with no options. They just had to DFA someone to create a roster spot. I think that's the only problem with that. But also, you're winning, and like if you have to you're this is a team trying to win, and if you're trying to trim on the margins like that, like the Cubs are totally okay doing it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Um, Kyle, what does that go to your position player question, or like what was your framing on that end?
Thanks. Sorry, I got sidetracked reading a Bob Nightingale stat. Um, so the 13th player on the roster here on the position player side, like who do you think is going to be the fourth outfielder? So, and I'll list the 13 or the 12 guys that I think would be. I think that's a theoretical shoe, and maybe there's one question mark on here. So you have Amaya, Big Mo, Carson Kelly, Michael Bush, Nico Horner, Alex Bregman, Matt Shaw, Dansby, PCA, Haps. Yeah, that's 11. So then I'm assuming we're counting Tyler Austin on this
Yeah.
on the
He's on a
position
major
player
league
side.
deal, so yeah.
So yeah, 12. So then that leaves Kevin Alcantara, Justin Dean, Chas McCormick, Dylan Carlson. Are those four guys fighting for the last position player spot, or do you think it's somebody else?
No, I think it's
Yeah.
those four, and I would my guess would be Dylan Carlson. I think he's probably the most interesting name of the NRI guys, and maybe there isn't anyone on the pitching side that catches anyone's eyes, but Dylan Carlson's the guy on the position player side that catches their eye. I think it's Chas McCormick or Dylan Carlson probably have the edge right now to be the fourth outfielder, and I would think they would go with Dylan Carlson. That's just me like kind of going back on track record, but Chas McCormick's also a nice player. Kevin Alcantara getting that extra option year probably gives him some flexibility, allows him to start the year in Iowa and then be called up as needed, kind of like some of the pitching side guys that we were talking about. But I'd go Dylan Carlson for that last spot on the bench and the fourth outfielder.
Yeah, I mean, McCormick's a nice player. Bregman knows him well from playing together for years in Houston. He's a good role player, but he's on a minor league deal, so I don't think he's necessarily like owed a spot. But I think it really kind of depends on what they're looking for. If you go McCormick, your bench, assuming that Ballesteros is in the lineup and you got a righty on the mound, your bench is Amaya, Austin, Shaw, and Chas McCormick. So you have four righties on the bench, which isn't the best fit, right? Like you want some depth, some versatility, and Dylan Carlson is a switch hitter. And like this is crazy. I mean, I know he's a former first round pick. He's only 27 years old. So I'm with you, Andy, in that like there's some upside there. There's some intrigue. And just think about like how, I'm not saying that Dylan Carlson's going to hit, but like what if he does? Like what kind of slap in the face would that be to the Cardinals, who are rebuilding and trading away Brendan Donovan and Nolan Arenado and all of this? And, Kyle, as you
Yes.
posted on the Windy City Breakdown Twitter, like, the Cardinals could lose 95 games for the first time in a century. Like, what kind of
Mhm.
blow would this be if their first round pick from 5-6 years ago, he was 2016 actually, so a decade ago. I can't believe that, out of high school. If he suddenly like hits and becomes a thing with the Cubs.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who had a 2.4 F4 and is in 2021 is his second year in the big leagues, first full season. 2020 he debuted the COVID shortened season, and then in 2022 posted a 1.9 WAR. So like, there's a track record of success in the major leagues, and that was one of the reasons that like Brad Keller was so intriguing when they signed him as an NRI guy last year. And I know it's a position player versus a pitcher, but like Brad Keller was he rookie? He was rookie of the year finalist. He might have won the award. I can't remember off the top of my head, but like he had a proven track record of success in the major leagues. And that's easier to kind of reclaim or refine success when a guy has done well in the major leagues. Whereas like you're signing a guy who is 31 and has had maybe like a cup of coffee in the major leagues, you're not gonna strike gold on that guy. But like a Dylan Carlson, a first round pick who has some track record success, like that's potentially a guy that could happen. Patrick Wisdom was a non roster invitee and former first round pick that clubbed a lot of home runs. He wasn't a great fit for a team that was trying to win, but like he was able to you were able to strike gold on a guy like that. Matt Duffy, another guy in recent years that they brought in as an NRI guy that like had some success. Like there, you have to have guys that have track record of success that you can kind of build up, and Dylan Carlson to me fits that mold.
Yeah, I mean, so this is two different positions, but do you know who else was 27 when they came over as a former highly thought of former, like top prospect? Jake Arrieta was 27 when he first started with the Cubs. Obviously had the breakout. So two different situations. I'm not saying Dylan Carlson's going to be Jake
Are
Arrieta,
you saying
but I'm
Dylan?
just
And they're
saying
both
like,
coming from the Orioles. How about that? They're both coming from the
yeah,
Orioles. Oh,
yeah,
look at that.
yeah.
That's going to
I'm
be our
just saying
promo tweet.
27
It's
is
Dylan Carlson, Jake Arrieta, my column.
y- yes, the Jake Arrieta of the Cubs outfield in 2026. No,
Real
I'm
quick,
just saying like 27 means there's upside there. Like he's kind of just entering his prime. Like I'm intrigued.
Andy, you said that Brad Keller got Rookie of the Year votes in 2018. Some guy named, or he was in the top 5. Some guy named Shohei Ohtani was the Rookie of the Year in 2018 in the AL. I
I
don't
gotta
see
see that.
Brad Keller even getting any votes, but I'm also just looking at the top 5 here. So I just
Isn't
want to
Brad
make
Keller
He had
sure
a
gonna
I'm
really
make
good
putting
rookie
you
more?
in your
campaign.
place.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
No, that's what you got to do. Yeah, put me in my place.
He did have a
Go
good
ahead,
rookie
Tony.
Isn't
Sorry
campaign.
to interrupt.
Brad Keller's salary is higher than Shohei Ohtani's in 2026 though? Can you confirm that?
I don't know how the salary
Techni-
cap works, to be honest with you.
Technically,
No, it
Shohei's
That
is.
making
seems
2 million. Yeah,
Yeah, Shohei's making 2 million and Brad
with all the
Keller's making
deferred money.
11. So yeah. Hey, we don't make the rules. That's just the truth. Yeah. Brad
Yeah.
Keller getting paid more than Shohei Ohtani. But one was rookie of the year and the other one wasn't. No, but yeah, like the position player other than the fourth outfielder position is pretty well set. And again, it goes back to the lefty matchups, getting the fourth outfielder. Like I think Dylan Carlson makes a lot of sense. But who's to say that Dylan Carlson doesn't struggle in spring and Chas McCormick crushes it and they're okay going that way, or maybe there's a performance by Kevin Alcantara that kind of opens their eyes and they're like, we're okay going with this guy. I think there's a lot that to keep an eye on in spring training. I do have we're going to talk a little bit more spring training stuff, but I have like I want to kind of get on my soapbox a little bit. Like one thing I want to say that like always bugs me this time of spring training. Everyone always says like they're in the best shape of their life, best shape of their life, and in spring training, and like it always bugs everyone. My biggest thing is like seeing BP and people thinking like this guy added pop because he's crushing BP. If you go to pregame at any point in the season and you watch BP, a lot of these guys who don't have a lot of home runs are hitting home runs in BP. That does not mean they added power. They might have added power. Like yes, they might have they might have added a lot of OPS or slugging to their game, but like don't count it off BP. Count it off like actual live at bats. Count it off actual spring training games. Count it off actual regular season at bats. If a guy's crushing balls in BP, that's what they're supposed to be doing. Like that's do not take anything away from spring training BP on February 10th, February 11th, February 12th, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's me getting off my soapbox.
No, I'm with you. I mean, even September 10th, 11th, 12th, I mean, I feel like is not a time to really take much stock from BP. That being said, some guys have really, really entertaining BPs. I mean, Patrick Wisdom had some really awesome BPs just because of his raw power. I mean, my favorite
Christopher Morel.
Christopher Morel. Yeah, you wrote a nice story for that a couple of years ago. But like my favorite BP I ever saw was Javi Baez, and it was because he hit lefty and he was crushing homers the way he would righty, and it was just incredible. And like I remember asking him about it, and he does so many things left-handed. I mean, he basically is a lefty. Who just for some reason when he was younger started throwing the baseball righty and swinging righty, but like everything else is lefty. He kicks lefty, I believe he said in like soccer whenever he's played, but like he likes turning around and hitting lefty in the cage sometimes or for BP because he feels like it kind of helped like balance him out. But like you should have seen some of these homers that he would hit. Like it was incredible. Lefty Javi would hit more homers than not picking on any guys, but like hit more homers than a lot of guys righty in their like natural stance. It was pretty nuts.
I
But
mean,
also that
Javi
doesn't
literally
translate to him
he
being a. Oh, go ahead.
no, as I say, he literally doubled. He's hit lefty in a game, and I think he hit a
Yeah.
double before. Sorry, Andy.
Yeah.
Go
If
ahead.
you 10, 15 feet short of the wall, yeah.
Yeah, but I was gonna say, but that doesn't mean Javi Baez is gonna be hitting left-handed all the time, and so that's why I
Yeah.
don't take too much stock in BP.
Maybe you should.
That was my big. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe that totally disproves my
I'm just
theory.
kidding.
Is Javi
I
Baez
love you,
taking
Javi.
BP? Uh, but that was my one soapbox that I had to get off because like I've seen so much social media stuff about like, oh, this guy's added pop or this guy's crushing the ball, so he's gonna hit a lot more home runs. It's February 11th in spring training. We have no idea.
So Brent Rooker, and of course, I think AI is taking over here because as soon as you started talking about this on my Twitter feed, Brent Rooker's tweet popped up and he said a few reminders for everyone as guys start reporting to camp. One, no one in the locker room cares at all if you show up with stuff from your old team's bag. And I think that's in reference to Luke Weaver showing up with the Yankees bag. I'm not too sure. But then secondly, this is the one that's to
Yep.
Andy's point. It's pretty much impossible to gain 15 to 20 pounds of muscle in 4 weeks of the offseason. Not everybody's in the best shape of their life. So, yeah, congrats to you, Andy. You could stand on that soapbox and cheer high.
I
Wait,
will.
4
I will
weeks
because
and 4 months,
because
pardon
these guys
me.
don't take.
Okay.
Oh, I was gonna. Yeah, I thought the argument for 4 weeks was like these guys still are doing a lot of workouts and training in the off season, and maybe they only take 4 weeks off. But also that seems like a lot of time for these guys to be taking off. But 4 months makes sense. Makes a lot more sense.
Yep.
Tony, what is there anything else that we missed that we should be getting to from the pressers? Anything that you take away from spring training? What are you kind of keeping an eye on as the spring training really starts getting ramped up?
I'm just happy baseball's back, Negative Andy had his soapbox moment, which I think was totally fair. And I'm with you on that, but I think the kind of the other side, the glass half full side is I just think it's cool. I like hearing the sounds of baseball. I like hearing guys, smash the ball in BP and I love watching like defense and live BPs and glove pops and all that kind of stuff right now. So it's cool. I'm just happy baseball's back. And honestly, like this, I feel like that maybe the Olympics are getting me excited more. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit towards the end of the last segment of the pod, but like I'm just excited because like WBC is around the corner, and like I feel like I'm pretty pumped to watch some of that.
Go ahead, Kyle. I think you were going to say something. Go for it.
How about Alex Bregman taking Jameson Tayo and Yabo San Lucas?
Yeah,
That one, yeah, I think you could put a little more stock in. That's live VP.
Hell yeah, you can.
That's against a pitcher. Kyle, as a fan, I want to know like how do you look at this guy took your guy deep, or this guy struck out your main hitter in live BP? Like, how do you look at that?
It's a great question, actually, because I was just thinking about this, and I'm gonna say I will ignore any negative. I'm just like if Taillon struck out Bregman, I'd be like, dude, JMO, look at him what he did in the postseason last year. He might start opening day. But now since Bregman took him deep, I'm like, dude, Bregman, MVP. you know? Uh, but on a serious note, I actually probably more lean to like, yeah, I hate when they're inter squatting or intra squatting. Is it intra squatting or inter squatting?
technically, but it doesn't matter. All the baseball players say inter, like it's not like grammatically it's intra, INTRA, but like everybody talks. I remember from the 2020 season, they're like, yeah, we had an inter squad, and it's like, okay, whatever. Everybody just says intra, they're interchangeable.
There's Tony's soapbox.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I am not the grammar guy around here. Let's get that straight. Um,
Okay.
when they're facing off against their own teammates, I'll just frame it that way. It's cool, right? Like I think it's just at the point where baseball's being played right now, and it makes me excited. But at the same time, I couldn't like, regardless of the result, couldn't give a shit. I think it's cool that he hit a homer. Homers are cool. I saw it went like 20 feet over the fence. But besides that,
Yeah.
I don't put too much stock in it. But the meatball of me is just going to ignore all the negatives.
We had two things before we wrapped up the pod that we wanted to get to. The first one, with spring training starting up, we've all been to Arizona. We've all been to Mesa Cubs facility. If you're a fan, if you're listening and you've never been, or you're going for maybe second, third time to watch spring training, we want to give you some recommendations of like, this is what you need to go see. This is what you need to go do. Tony, I want to start with you. What's your like go-to either food spot, go-to spot in Arizona when you have some free time that fans should definitely check out?
So this will be kind of two-sided. One, I think when people go down there, for one, practice time before games start is really cool. So like I would highly
There you go.
recommend that. But I think too many people go and are geared around the game, but there are always every time there's a home game, especially if you're watching at Sloan Park, there's practice and there's workouts and stuff in the morning. Like go to that. You can see what guys are doing on field one. You might see a live BP like, Bregman took Tyone deep in Sloan Park. You're not going to be let in for that. But there's a gated area where you're allowed to see stuff on field one, on field two, whatever. Like you can watch BP, you can watch an infield outfield drill, you can watch maybe a live BP or bullpens or something. Like go there and like the best part of it for fans is guys are so much more accessible and available in the morning hours when they're getting their work in. There's maybe a few dozen fans at most, sometimes 100, couple hundred, but like you're not contending with the amount of fans, the sheer amount of fans that you are during games, even in spring training, but especially in the regular season. So like you kind of have this like unbridled access in a way to like see these players, possibly get autographs, have a chance to talk to them, and they can hear you, and like you could possibly have a conversation. So like I think it's really cool, at the very least, if you just want to go observe, it's a really cool way to observe. You can go all the way to the backfield and see some minor league guys. Like highly recommend that. As
I
for
was
like
gonna
away
say,
from go ahead.
go ahead. I was gonna say to that point, like the backfield. So one thing that Craig Counsell's kind of brought in that I think is really cool is they do a lot of workouts in the backfields. Like the actual major leaguers go on the backfields. Like in the past, it was kind of the backfields was used as like extra space or my only exclusively minor leaguers, but PCA's took BP on the backfields last year. Uh, Kyle Tucker took BP, his first BP on the backfields last year. Like the backfields, especially early on in camp, are a great time to go see some of these major leaguers. To your point on that, and then another hack: if you're going to a game, look at the day before's roster. Usually, the way that players have their workouts or their schedule is if they play one game, the next day they're not playing in the game. So if like your favorite player is Nico Horner and you want to see him play, if you saw he was in the lineup yesterday, he's probably not going to play that day you're going to the game, but maybe go early to the facility and check out, see if he's doing drills or if he's taking BP. So keep an eye on that because it's usually early on. It's play one game, have a day off, play the next game, et cetera, until maybe the last week. That's when they start playing a little bit more back to back. So that's a little hack too. So check out the backfields and keep an eye on the lineup from the day before. Kyle, what's your recommendation, or
I
what
thought
did
when
you
you
want
were,
to add on?
I thought you were gonna say when check the lineups in case you want to throw a couple bucks on the game or something. I, I swear to God, and I know you guys don't do that, and I'm speaking to the
Can
degenerates
you
out
bet
there
on
right now.
spring training baseball?
Tone, come on, come on, yeah, of course you can. I don't
What
do it for the
why are
Cubs
you
though.
betting on an exhibition game?
Listen, market inefficiencies. They
That's
tell you who's playing. They tell you who's pitching. Why would you not? And I'm not saying it's a couple bucks, especially during the workday, just keeps things moving. Come on, you're telling me Blue Jays Phillies? I'm gonna watch a spring training game on MLB Network unless I have like $2 on the game. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. Guess what? Maybe you profit like $10 and it's a beer. But you know what? It's the memories you make along the way. I'm sorry, that was exactly what I thought you were gonna say. And shout out, this just brought me
It's
back to
not at
shout out
all.
Jack Rosen. Shout out Jack Rosen. That was like the first thing he'd come in the office. He'd be like, "Hey, like you look at the lineups," and it wouldn't even be about the Cubs game. It'd be like Yankees Braves in Tampa. I'd be like, "I did." Anyways, going to Arizona. Sorry, that was the first thing I thought of, and I know it's probably not the best. Um, as a fan, I think, and I know we were talking about batting practice and like these guys can hit tanks, but I think just seeing it in general. So say it's what game started at 1 o'clock out there. I think gates open
Yeah.
maybe 90 minutes or 2 hours early. but I think it is the coolest thing to just stand on the outfield grass or the bleacher grass, so to say, not actually on the field, and watch these guys just hit tanks. I mean, it could be Patrick Wisdom, Alex Bregman, anybody in between, right? I think to me that is the coolest thing. Um, Besides that, just God, just enjoying the sun. And I know that sounds so basic, but just being out there and getting sun anywhere you can. Um, Bring your sunscreen, of course. And then the last one, Boondocks. You knew I had to mention Boondocks. Andy's a Boondocks legend out
Boone,
there.
I wouldn't say legend, but it's a great spot in Old Town Scottsdale. 100% would recommend Boondocks. Um, Great spot. I was going to mention two places you got to go eat. Like one of my favorite things when I was on the road was trying to find good taco places, and in Phoenix there's so many, and I'm going to mention just two, and if you've been multiple times, you're probably going to call me out and say there's better ones. But the first one is Tacos Chiwas, Chiwas. They make phenomenal tacos. There's one in Mesa, in like downtown Mesa. So good. I took Elise Medeker and Scotty, our friend Scotty Shagnon, to Chiwas Tacos Chiwas last year. They loved it. And then there's another spot if you're going to go see the Cubs play on the west side of Phoenix, so the Cubs are in Mesa, which is like on the east side. If you're going out to the west side, there's a spot. I'm trying to look up the name right now. I needed a little bit more time to research the name. Asadero, Asadero, Toro. It's in Phoenix proper. Really good tacos. You only need like two. They make these things huge. So like two tacos, you're good to go. And it's a great spot on the way to the west side of Phoenix. Go ahead, Kyle.
I was going to say, what's your favorite park besides Sloan?
Oh, Salt River Fields, where the Rockies and Diamondbacks. I think that's like that's my favorite.
Yeah, I was going to say that
That's
as
a good
well.
one. Mine is I forget what it's. I don't remember the name of it, but the Angels stadium down there
Tempe
with
Diablo.
yeah, Tempe Diablo, yeah. With the mountain in left field. I mean, it looks like you can hit a homer into the mountain. You're not going to, but like I think it's really cool. I love that one. It feels like such a throwback, even being in the press box. There's like a 15-seat press box. It's like far and away the smallest press box area in like the Cactus League. But I love it. It feels like it feels like I'm like kind of going to a game in the 90s, but like it's a really cool view. I feel like would just like grab a scorecard, bring my magazine, my whatever baseball preview magazine, which by the way I picked up at the airport because I love getting one every year. I just love the old school hard copy, but yeah, I mean that's my favorite. It's a cool place. I was actually just thinking about that stadium a couple of days ago, and like, man, I'm bummed that I'm not going to see it now, and I didn't go last year either. So this is like 2 years in a row that I haven't been to Tempe Diablo.
So that's like the only one I have not been to. I think whenever I was in spring training, like the 3 years that I was there for the full time, my 1 week off lined up with when they were going to Angels, or last year when I left a little early, like I didn't. I have not been to Tempe Diablo. That's like the only one. The other one that I heard is really good is Scottsdale Stadium, where the
Yep.
Giants are. I think I think that's like the worst press box, and I think it's like the worst working setup. So I actually don't like it, but I've heard as a fan that one's a really great one too. And
Oh,
Kyle,
the
you can.
I was going to jump in after Tony said Tempe Diablo. Scottsdale Stadium, I think is oh man, I'm trying to think between Salt River and Scottsdale Stadium. I think I'd put that second behind Sloan, to be honest with you. Watching it, you go watch it from essentially the batter's eye in center field, and it's standing room there. But my God, it is just, I mean, what a park. What a place.
Yeah, I mean that's a great, and you're in Scottsdale, like so many great places to go out and eat and drink, and like it's just a good spot to be. Like that's a really good
Yeah.
spot. All right, we're gonna wrap up with our final segment that we started last week. That I had a lot of fun doing it last week. What we're digging in the sports world outside of baseball. I cheated last week and used baseball. I'm not going to this week. Kyle, let's start with you. What do you got? What are you digging outside of in the sports
So
world
this
outside of baseball?
this is going to be maybe a little controversial here. Want to get on my controversy out. It's regarding the Super Bowl. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it is the craziest thing that the Super Bowl winners have to go to Disneyland the day after they win the Super Bowl. Why, like, I don't care how much money you're getting paid. One, they have to be hungover. And I saw Sam
Yeah.
Darnold and Kenneth walk around those teacups, and I almost puked for them. Like, that just seems miserable. And secondly, don't you think they wanna be again, taking money out of it, I'm sure they get a nice bag to go there. Wouldn't they just wanna be celebrating with their families and their teammates? Like, did they go to Disney World in Orlando? Did they fly from
It was
Santa
Disneyland. I
Clara?
saw it was Disneyland in California.
Okay, that takes out, like, a quarter of the argument. Regardless, the last place I wanna be the day after winning a Super Bowl is on a teacup ride, spinning around where I'm hungover already. I think and think, okay, say if the Super Bowl's in, like, Texas or when it was in Minnesota. These guys are flying to either Florida or California the day after they win, then flying back to their cities for the parade. I don't know. So
Yeah.
I think I'm probably the only person that's thought about that, but I think about this every year and it just pisses me off. So that's what I'm thinking about right now.
I think that's a fair argument. I think unless the Super Bowl's in LA or in Orlando, like you should not have to go. You go to Disney World like next week or something.
Yeah, give me a
Like
week.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, I've never thought about that, never committed brain power to it, but I do agree with you, I mean, hot take, even if I'm not hungover, I don't like the spinny rides, the teacups, you wouldn't catch me on it. I just hate being dizzy, I hate feeling dizzy. So, I wouldn't like being on them even if I was hungover or not.
All right, Tony, what are you digging in the sports world? What's yours?
I mean, like I was saying, baseball wise, I feel like I'm more excited for the WBC than I have been the last couple of WBCs. I just think it'll be really cool. And, 3 years ago with Shohei against Trout to end the World Baseball Classic was an awesome moment. So I feel like I'm still kind of riding that momentum. Outside of baseball is, I think shout out Jordan Stolz that, won the gold medal in men's speed skating today, set an Olympic record for Team USA. But I think curling has been a lot of fun. Every 4 years I get into curling. The two Corys, Corey Tesi and Corey Dropkin, just mixed doubles got a silver medal this week for Team USA. And now Tesi's playing for the U.S. women's team, which starts tomorrow, Thursday, whenever you're listening to this. So yeah, I think curling's fun. I feel like I've learned so much more about curling this year that I'll probably end up forgetting. So 4 years from now, I'll have to relearn it. But yeah, curling's been a lot of fun.
The mixed curling was so much fun because like the U.S. team started 4-0, and then they started choking away where I didn't even think they were going to make it to the medal round, and then they were in the gold medal match. They lost, but I curling was so much fun. Like I agree. I enjoyed it a ton. Um, though the my what I'm watching, it's soccer related. So I don't know if you guys have heard of this guy. It's the United Strand. United Strand is the guy's name. So it's this fan, Manchester United fan yes, Manchester United fan, soccer team in England. They like 10, 15 years ago were one of the top teams in the world. They've kind of have fallen off, had a rocky road. They really hit a rough patch a little over a year ago. They fired their coach, brought in a new coach. This fan said he's not cutting his hair until Manchester United wins 5 games in a row. He's not cutting his hair. That was 419 days ago. And so then this past Monday, I believe it was, they were playing West Ham United, who was like one of the worst teams in the Premier League, might get relegated, having won 4 in a row. It's a shoo-in, right? Like they'd beaten the team that was in first place. They'd beaten teams that were better than them in this four game winning streak. They're going to win. They tied 1-1. So it goes back to 0. So he's got to keep waiting. I was watching the game. I didn't even care about the game. I just wanted to see if this guy was going to be able to cut his hair. But my big takeaway about that was like 5 games in a row to win in soccer is like so hard, just because like there's a lot of times that teams will, especially in league, where like you might punt games. Like you might be just trying to get a tie like towards the end of games. Like winning 5 games in a row is really, really hard. It's not something that happens all the time. It's not like in baseball where there's a 5 game winning streak. It's not like in football where a team can win 5 in a row. Like soccer, like it doesn't happen. I was looking it up. 12 teams haven't won more than 5 games in a row in like over 5 years. Like it just in the Premier League. Like that picking 5 games, I think, was his mistake. Like he needed to go down and be like, I'm not shaving until, or I'm not cutting my hair till they win 3 games in a row. that's what I'm watching. I'm kind of I had fun watching that. I'm curious to see how much longer it's going to go. It's probably it might go another year, honestly, before he gets a haircut. But you got to look this guy's hair up. Like he had
Look
like
He's got
a
a
good now.
great head of lettuce.
it's not great anymore. It's too long now. It's like insane. Like
It's great because of the
he had the
story.
well, yeah, it is. But he live streamed the game and it was just funny seeing his reaction because I think he had a barber on hand like ready to cut his hair because they like again they was I think they were like heavy favorites on the betting line too. Like it was
They were.
just a fun story. They were, yeah. See, you would know.
Yeah, they were.
That was my
I
story.
didn't bet it.
It was a lot of fun. He did not
This is
bet it.
crazy.
I think out of principle I would have bet for West Ham or not Manchester United just to see this guy suffer a little bit longer. But yeah, it was a fun story to follow. I'm curious to see how long it'll happen. But hey guys, this was fun. I had a lot of fun. Let's do it again next week.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Thank you guys as always for listening. Again, if you made it this far, drop us comments, drop us suggestions. Thank you so much for the overwhelming support you guys sent us on social. It's pretty cool seeing all the reactions and messages after we launched our debut podcast. And keep dropping us feedback. For Kyle, for Tony, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for tuning in and listening as always.